Bezrat Hashem, the Gemara this morning, Bekhorot, page 36a. The Gemara is teaching us this morning a rule called Apeh she'asar hu apeh she'itir. The same mouth that said it's not allowed is the same mouth if we can say it is allowed, and let us explain. Somebody says, the Gemara, somebody comes and he says, do you know that this sheep is a Bechor? Bechor means is a firstborn. We didn't know about it. This person is telling us this. And then he's telling us, but do you know that it has a physical defect, which we call in Hebrew a mum? And we know that a Bechor usually is given to the Kohen, and the Kohen has to eat it, right? Has to slaughter it in Bet HaMikdash. But if the Bechor, the firstborn of the animal, has a physical defect, you just buy it off and you can eat it anywhere. So we didn't know this animal is a Bechor, and this person testified that this animal is a Bechor. So Apeh she'asar, his mouth rendered this animal not permissible because it became a Bechor, and now he must take it to the temple to eat it there, right? But then he tells us, but you know it has a physical defect, is Apeh she'itir. This is the mouth that comes to permit it. So in the beginning, his words were rendering the thing not allowed, and then at the end, the same mouth, the same different words telling us it's allowed. The Gemara continues giving a second example. A lady comes to a new city. No one knows her, no one heard about her, and we ask her, what are you exactly? So she said, I was married. Oh, you were married, so no one can marry her anymore. But then she says, no, she got divorced. So the same mouth that said she's married and no one could have married her anymore is the same mouth telling us today that she's divorced. So if she wouldn't say she was married, you wouldn't know, right? Unless you had information about her that she was married, so then we don't need her testimony. But since we did not know anything about her, by her saying I was married and rendering herself not permissible to get married to other people, and then coming back and say I was divorced, so then she renders herself permissible. By the way, today this law would not be applicable anymore, because today there is communications and you can find out yourself information about the person. So if a lady comes and says, I was married, and that puts a red light on her, and she comes and says, nah, but I was divorced. But today, if you were divorced, we have to find out from the city where you were divorced, what's your status. In the olden day, we didn't have any way to find out. So we have to take her words. So since she says she's not permissible and then telling us permissible, we have to believe whatever she says. But today that we could find out what's her status. So she was divorced in a certain city. We call up the Beit Din and we ask them, do you have the file of this and this lady or this and this man? And then by checking the file, we don't need her to testify on herself anymore. We can check the things ourselves. So if somebody comes and says, yes, I was divorced, we would ask him a proof, right? Many times he would say, oh, I lost it. There's no problem. Every Beit Din, every court, right, would keep the records of your divorce, of your civil divorce, and of your religious divorce. And then you won't be believed to say just like this, I was married, I wasn't married, I got divorced, I didn't get divorced. You would have to prove it, and the only way to prove it is to bring legal papers. Another example we can give, a little bit different. The Gemara says, and the Halacha says, if somebody comes into a city, and we ask him, oh, Shalom Aleichem, how you doing? What's your name? And he says, let's say Shlomo. Shlomo what? Shlomo Cohen. Oh, Shlomo Cohen, you're a Cohen. Oh, wow, great, right? We cannot ask him to bring proof. What proof do you want him to bring you that he's a Cohen, right? So if the Gemara says, if somebody comes and says he's a Cohen, we believe him that he's a Cohen. So therefore, he will be able to go up to the Torah, first one, right? Also, he will be able to go up to the Duchan to do Birkat Kohanim, right? He will be able to do Pidyon ben, if somebody has a firstborn baby and invites him to buy off the baby from him, you'll be able to perform that. Why? Because on that, we have no proof, means no one writes in Beddin that you are a Kohen and there's no such thing. So if you come into a city, right, and you say you're a Kohen, you are believed. So there's many different situations. Sometimes you are believed, sometimes you're not believed, right? But depending on the situation. But whatever you can find out, the best thing will be to go and find out, because you don't want to end up with certain surprises. There was once a couple, they were married, a young couple married for a year, and then the Khatan disappeared. He disappeared for almost a year. They were looking for him all over the city, all over the cities around. He had no trace, nothing left over. We didn't know where he is. And the poor girl, she was aguna. Aguna means she couldn't get married because her husband never gave her a divorce. A year later, somebody shows into town, and people started to say, "Oh, this is the one we're looking for. This is the guy." So they called the father-in-law, and the father-in-law recognized him and says, "Oh, where did you disappear?" And this person hardly talked, hardly said anything, just nodded his head. So the father-in-law says, "Yeah, it's really strange, but Then the father-in-law had an idea to go meet the Rav of the city. At that time, the Rav was Rabbi Yecheskel Landau, known as the Noda B'Yehuda. And the father-in-law told him, my Khatan came back a year after, but he's acting a bit strange. I don't know what to do. So the Noda B'Yehuda says, make sure he does not get together with your daughter. Make him sleep in a different house, and tomorrow morning, tell him to meet you by Shachrit. Tell him the time for Shachrit, and tell him to meet you with a prayer, but you watch him what he's doing." Okay. So the next morning, the couple got separated. He slept in a different house, and the next morning, this person came to shul, and then he was looking like for a place to pray. He was going this side and the other side, and this side and the other side, and the rabbi and the father-in-law were watching. Then the rabbi called the father-in-law and says, "This guy is an imposter. It's not your son-in-law." So right away after the prayer, they called him inside the rabbi's room, and they brought in some very important people from the community, and the rabbi asked him, "Tell us, who are you?" So then he saw all those eyes looking at him, and the rabbi was very serious look at him, so he had no choice than to admit that he is not the son-in-law, he's a different person. But what happened? He met the son-in-law who ran away, and this son-in-law gave him a lot of information about his wife that he left, right? Her name, her address, her father-in-law. And since he resembled him, he tried to come and to make himself look like the son-in-law. But how did the rabbi know about it? So the rabbi said, "I know one thing. If he prayed for 1 year with his father-in-law before disappearing, he would know exactly to come back to its place. The fact that he didn't know where is the place to pray, I realized this is not the right person." So to tell you, the Beddin, the rabbis, they have always the chokhmah to find out in a certain situation. So whenever you can find out and bring proof, you should do that. And whenever you cannot find out, go to speak with somebody that can help you maybe find the right path in the right way. I wish you a great day. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.